It's the big one. It's the one everyone has been waiting for, and it's been that way in the Six Nations for many years now. Ireland versus France, and I've got Elko with me again to talk about it. Elko, how you doing?
ATT, yeah, I'm good. Very much looking forward to this game in Dublin.
Absolutely, absolutely crucial game in this year's Six Nations. Now, just let's look back very quickly about both teams and how they've come into this. France, obviously, off the back of a magnificent win over in Italy, but sometimes it was probably a little bit too easy for them. Elko, what about Ireland? How do you think they're coming into this?
Yeah, so thinking about before coming on was, we had a gap week and a fallow week, and I was trying to think who was that better for. France were coming off the back of a bad loss against England, and then really needed to do something against the Italians, which they did. And for Ireland, it's probably more conditioning and looking at that because they'd rested some guys anyway. So it was always in the plan sort of thing. So yeah, it's interesting. I guess for Ireland, I probably wouldn't be looking much at what France did against Italy in attack. Well, I'd be probably looking more at what Italy did against France. They still, I know they got absolutely whopped 10 tries, 70 points, but they still scored some tries, particularly at that 13 channel. So that will give the Irish guys some confidence. But it's massive. It's huge in so many respects, and I'm sure we'll get into some of the side stories.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that right now because, as if this game didn't need any more spice, there's been a whole load of controversy about the Ringrose Untomax bans this week and the fact that Gary Ringrose has only missed one championship game, whereas Untomax missed two for essentially the same offence. How do you see that, Alco? Do you think that's going to play a factor in this week's game?
It's a funny one because actually the big story in Ireland is more about Thierry Henry being in camp with that's much bigger for us. Maybe we can go into that, but I don't know. It's not really. I think it's more of a French thing. I think they're going bananas. Ireland's like what they didn't do anything wrong. They just played the game. I mean, I don't particularly agree with what's happened, but it's they had a better brief basically, and as we know from previous Lions tours where they brought down some really high end KCs to go to battle for them, rugby courts or these sort of disciplinary matters are very much ran like a court. So I don't think Ireland did anything wrong, but I can understand why France was a bit miffed, and I can understand probably them wanting to use that as fuel. But I don't know. I think it might be a bit of a waste of energy for Ireland. I don't. I think they're just getting on with
Yeah, absolutely. But let's talk about the Thierry Henry thing. I was wondering how much of a story that would be in Ireland because it's amazing timing. I wonder if they did do that deliberately, the French.
It's well, it's so weird. Like, why else? I don't know. It's so odd. Maybe Thierry's a massive rugby fan. I don't know, and it's got some of the soccer heads in Ireland. I'm sure. Hopefully, maybe we'll be supporting the rugby team when they might not have been. It's a real sore point. It's going back to what was it, 2009, I think, World Cup playoff. And at the Aviva, he handled the ball in much like the English hate Maradona from Mexico. It's a really horrible thing, and he was probably the most hated man in Ireland. So I don't know. It could be just by chance, but it feels a bit like they're trolling us a little bit. But again, it's noise. It's outside noise. It's more us and media talking about it. I doubt it's even sort of flickered on the radars of the players. I hope not.
No, I'm sure it hasn't, but it's still fun to talk about, that's for sure.
Big time.
Okay, some other things happening for this game. Finley Beanham and Jack Conan set to win 50th Test caps. And then also, it's kind of like the last dance in Dublin, anyway, for Conor Murray, Cian Healy, and Peter O'Mahony. How much do you think all of those things are going to play into the psyche of the Irish players this week?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I have sort of one of the main points is sort of around this game is emotion, um, and it's about controlling emotion, and uh, I think it's clever. I don't think it's going to be fire in the belly. I think it's more constructive. I think they probably would have talked about it. I think they probably knew it was coming. It was genius to do it last week, so the guys are there, but I know he's not there, but Farrell always talks about having narrative and story, and because it's hard to keep that emotional level high all the time. And I just think it's very clever. It's good we had a week off as well, as mentioned. So this kind of builds, and I'm sure this week it's building again. But we're not going to beat this massive French team because we're more up for it. I just don't think that. I think we have to actually be so controlled and accurate, like we have been in big test games versus South Africa, to a point against New Zealand in the World Cup, although we lost that. But we just have to be really controlled, take our chances. We know what's coming, but when we need it, maybe that's there. And also, I think for the crowd, it's going to be fantastic. It's an early kickoff at the Aviva, which often catches a lot of the fans out because they're in the pub. So hopefully they'll all be there, ready to rock and roll. And one of the guys is starting, two guys coming off the bench. That'll be hugely impactful, and hopefully that will get the crowd going even more, because we will need a big crowd there for sure, or a noisy crowd there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. I think it is more important in terms of the supporters and the crowd and the atmosphere around the stadium than the players themselves. Although it's a nice little extra thing just to focus on this week, or just to have in the back of your mind. Okay, let's get into the actual selections, because there is quite a lot of interesting things going on here. Starting with Ireland and the forwards. Peter Omani starts at 6. I mean, I thought maybe they would go with Conan, but I can absolutely see why they'd go with Omani to kick off as well. What are you making out of the forwards that he's selected here, Elko?
Yeah, again, it's I we're again we're recording literally. They've just announced it, but I sort of had picked a couple of different teams, and then I'd kind of changed it off the back of what France had picked, and it's almost like they've done that. But of course, there's no way they were waiting to announce the team. They would have announced this last night, so the boys would have known, sort of thing. I think it's a clever selection. I think there's lots of experience in there. I think it's the right pack. I think Conan probably has done enough to start. I think Ryan has done enough to start, but I think we knew what was coming down the line. We seem to be able to predict other team selections, but also we know what we need to do. And I think probably the bench is more powerful with this starting selection, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so as well. Actually, I think you're right. I think Omani is probably best to start in this game, because he can just use all that fire and brimstone in the most productive way. And then Conan, who's maybe the slightly more of a footballing type of a player, more likely to make a line break and potentially win a turnover later in the game, where he has done great impact in this tournament already. Does make good sense. We should say that Ty Furlong hasn't made it, neither has Ronan Kelleher in terms of being fit for selection for this one. So that really narrowed down options as well. Okay, let's go into the backs and take a look here, because it's pretty much as expected, apart from the fact that Mac Hansen hasn't made it with an injury, a quad injury apparently, which means Jamie Osborne's on the right wing. Apparently, Calvin Nash was fit and available for selection, so that's an interesting choice there. What do you make of it, Elko?
Yeah, it is. Obviously, it jumps out at you. Hansen with a quad injury, I believe, not a glute injury from like before, but so he's out, and Nash is unlucky. I think because of the way they've gone with the split, I think his hands were tied. I think they had to have someone like Osborne somewhere in the squad, because he can cover so many positions. But it is a risk slightly, although I really rate Osborne, and the way we defend, we're clever. I think we'll be okay. Has he got the out and out gas? We're gonna find out. He's played maybe 4 times for Leinster, most recently against Bath, where he did a good showing. So I think he'll be good. It gives us more options for kicking as well, which I think there's going to be a fair amount of. But yeah, that one stands out to me, because I think we'd probably like to have our set back three going into this, particularly with their two wingers, how alike they are to Hansen versus Lowe and Osborne, two big wingers. But let's see.
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly think that might be a channel around the 13-14 area that the French might want to try and target a little bit. I mean, there's obviously very few weaknesses, absolute weaknesses in this Ireland team, but maybe that is a tiny crack that they might go after. Onto the subs bench here, and Herring is back in at hooker, gone for experience there. Ryan, Conan Baird, Murray Crowley is a huge amount of experience on this bench, and obviously Cian Healy as well, the most experienced of them all.
Yeah, massive for him. I don't know how many caps, it's 100 and whatever, but it's huge. I love the selection of Herring, because I was thinking about this with sort of Kelleher was unlikely to be selected with a neck injury, and I was thinking, they've got a really experienced front row, both on and on the pitch, starting and on the bench, and if it was us, we know we'd be going after Gus McCarthy big time. He's only had a couple of caps. He's not the biggest kid, whereas I think Herring's a very good scrummaging. And I think all we'll need is, and I think we'll see this is, particularly with who's reffing and also who's on the sidelines, which is a massive issue for me. But I think we'll need to be very solid at set piece, particularly scrum. I just look to be solid, low, tight. I think Fogarty will have them really well drilled, and I think it's a very good selection. That 1670, and Clarkson did enough, I think, to be in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's go and look at the French because, as usual, they've done something which not many other people outside the French squad would have probably done. But we'll get onto that in a second. Let's look at the forwards first. Pretty much as expected again here as well. Just Miafu probably hasn't got back well enough after having quite a nasty illness apparently a few weeks ago. So Guillard, who was actually outstanding against the Italians anyway, keeps his place in the second row, and then all the rest exactly the same. And they've gone very well this tournament, the French forwards.
Yeah, really, really nice sort of balance. I feel like that second row actually is really good. They're very, as opposed to big bruisers, they're big kids. What, 6'8" and 6'7", but they're not 25 stoners. They're sort of 78, so very athletic. Will be good in line out. I think that's probably another reason. I think they're going to go after Ireland in the line out and put enormous pressure on us. But it's good. It looks really balanced. That front row again is massive. When Antonio, it's him and Porter will be a fascinating sort of watch sort of thing. And I was thinking about, normally we'd look to move them around and try and really push them on their fitness levels. I think the kids they've picked, some of the younger guys, I think that won't work. Again, that's why we're going to need to be very accurate and take our chances when they come up, sort of thing. So it's a fearsome pack, but we knew it was. There's no kind of surprises here, and again the back row is lovely, with a sort of La Rochelle bent on it there. And Aldry will probably be. We'll have a look in the bench in a second, but he'll probably be the one that I would think. TT, I don't know, you will probably go through the game, maybe move to 6 or 7 at some stage.
Possibly, yes. I mean, in terms of tiring them out, it's really now only Antonio that would fit in that bracket of being not all that mobile. The rest of them are absolute
The
athletes. There's no question
Yes.
about that. And also real footballers as well. There's so much talent in this French forward pack in terms of just moving defenders. The ability they can all pass. They can all sort of read defenders' movements and choose the best options. So that's where I think moreover than their size, they are really dangerous in terms of their footballing ability. Okay, on to the backs. And as expected, Untermack comes straight back in at 10. Ramos moves to fullback. Interestingly, Peno has been recalled after being dropped for the last game. And this looks like the strongest French backline that they have available right now, no question.
Yeah, it's scary. There's just so much attacking flair there, confidence from top 14 as well. Pano's going after this Blanco record. He's won off it, in terms of tries count. So, and he'll obviously have a point to prove. He'll feel bruised. He'll want to come and play well. They all will. I guess the only sort of, well, certainly what I'd be thinking is that 13 channel, and going after, is it Barisi or Barassi? I think because Fico's still not right. So, but having said that, he's still good going forward. So it's a scary back line, but again, it's like we knew this was coming. It's not the players, for me looking at, I go, oh God, because if they cut loose, there is, they can cut loose, and they have done, in Dublin before. But I think we've got a lot of test match animals in our back line, so hopefully that experience will come through and we'll be able to shut them down. But it's very exciting to look at.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you're exactly right about targeting Barassi in terms of where you want to be attacking because England got through him. The Italians got through him last time out as well. And it just seems like if there's a gap anywhere in this French defence, then that's the spot to really sort of get after them. Okay,
Yeah,
let's get onto the bench.
crossfield kicks as well. I think TT. I think maybe you saw a bit of a blueprint against Wales. Looking at trying to get low on a mismatch. And definitely now Osborne there as well. Who's played a lot in the back three, or sorry, at 15 as well. He's good in the air, so I think we'll see a lot of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Irish shape up very well compared to the French back three in terms of retrieving kicks. Okay, but the big story is on the bench where France have gone 7-1, and it's massive. And I don't think anybody genuinely really believed that they were going to do it. I certainly didn't, and I didn't read anybody else really think that they would do it in this fixture. What do you make of it?
Uh, Risky, very risky. Um, I know they've got a worldie in their nine who can cover all sorts of different positions, and Luku can play 10 as well, right? So they have got cover, but it's massively risky if they get an injury, as we saw with Scotland, right? When they went 6-2, and it really. But laws of averages, is that going to happen to them again? Or are Ireland going to be lucky enough for that to happen again? I don't know. It's massively risky. It's intriguing. It kind of shows you, I would imagine, the attitude of their training camp over the last couple of weeks of what they're going to do. Knowing this, some of the quotes coming out with the forwards is like, it's great that we're going this way because we know we can empty the tank and we can go for it. That's really interesting. So they will be very volatile and aggressive, and leaving nothing out there. And Ireland are going to have to cope and sponge that up, and not capitulate. So it's really interesting. Obviously, they're copying what South Africa have done in the past that we've seen before, but it's massively risky if someone does an ankle at 13, 14, 15, and then something happens later on. So we shall see. It's another amazing part of this narrative.
It definitely is. And just batting on the side of the French here for a little bit, I would say because they're so unstructured in how they play, it probably makes less difference to them than it would to many other teams because they don't play to structure, to pattern, all that kind of stuff. It, each individual player it doesn't have a specific role as such. So I think it probably does make less difference to them. Obviously, at set piece, that's when they need to have plans in place to manage this. And obviously, some of those forwards will have done a load of work over the probably this entire training camp to build up to being able to do this on this coming Saturday. But I agree, it's still a risk, but obviously one that Gautier thinks is worth taking.
Yeah, you think
Okay,
You think, I was going to say there on the structure, TT, I agree with you. You saw that against Italy. They're just phenomenal in broken play. That's great if you've got the ball. And I think where Ireland have to be really clever is that they keep the ball as much as possible in the right areas and starve them of it. And then that's when things start to, they might get frustrated, and if they did have an injury then I think Ireland have the game to be able to pick at them and pick, and really, really sort of go after them. So they'll have to have a lot of ball, I think, and I think Ireland know that. And I think there might be some rain in the forecast, and
I agree.
I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, because if it's rainy, people are saying, oh, it's great if it rains because then in that unstructured play, like what happened at Twickenham a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, it was a bit wet and they were dropping balls all over the place. But I wouldn't want to be up against basically two packs if it's wet, because they'll just be able to just inch it all the way, sort of thing. So it's I don't know how I feel about that. Maybe rain in the first half and dry in the second. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we would say tactically that we've seen from the Irish more so this Six Nations is that they've been kicking more from the middle third. They've been waiting to really get territory before they start playing. So, and France obviously like to do the same. They only wait till they play until they get into like 40 meters from the opposition line, something like that. So we don't get a game that's just stuck in the middle third for long periods. I hope we get plenty of attack in rugby, and I hope we get the breaks in the game. The other thing that's going to come into a factor in that is the scoreboard as well. If it's tight on the scoreboard and the ball's in the middle third, neither team is going to want to take too many risks, I don't think. So some tries early, hopefully some good attacking play early, and then the game will just bust open like it has done. All the recent games between these two countries have been absolutely epic.
Yeah, yeah, it will be, and I don't think either team has had this yet. This campaign is it will be a test match. I think it will be very much like the semi-finals for both teams, in the World Cup. It will be it will be about who. You're right. It will bust open at times, but I think it will be quite attritional. I think well, it has to be the way they pick their team, right? So they're going for an attritional game, but they've got the back line to absolutely open up, sort of thing, and conditioning will be a massive factor as well. I mean, then my head starts to move towards us because I feel that we're probably just the way we manage our players will have a little edge there, but it will I think it will be a banger. I think it'll be tight for sure.
Now, do we think, well, we definitely do think the French are going to try and run down Prendergast's channel as much as they can, I'd imagine, particularly early in the game. And look, this isn't a new tactic. Every team's done this since the beginning of time. Try and run over the fly half, the biggest sort of decision maker,
Of course.
and typically, not always, but typically one of the weaker defenders. So it's nothing new. But how much do you think France are going to go after that?
Oh, I think they will go after him. Yeah, big time. I think they will, especially after I've rewatched that Wales game a couple of times, and there's a few bits you go, ooh, But again, this is where I think Ireland will have to play a possession game and try and keep the ball as much as possible. And like you said, they're quite controlled in where they attack from. So if we can keep territory and down there, away from where they feel they're allowed attack. But I would imagine he will have a lot of traffic coming down his lane. They will be looking for him, and whether Ireland look to hide him, I don't know. They can always shift Bundy in there, but then I don't always agree with that. Our back row will just have to be very, very, very clever and accurate with what they're doing. But I mean, you'd go after him, wouldn't you? You just got to.
Yeah, 100% right. But this is where the danger is for the Irish now is that if people try and cover him, i.e., get tighter to him just because they're a bit nervous about his defensive capabilities, there's no better team in the world than the French to then switch channel, get it to where that space is, and exploit it. So if it is, I think it will need to probably be at least dry-ish for them to really execute that. But they are lethal. That was what they did so well against the Italians, really. They just got all the Italians looking in and then just moved the ball away to a different channel where the space was. It was
Yeah,
lethal. Yeah, absolutely lethal.
yeah. And the way the little general works at nine, he kind of steps back, and they don't actually. It's an interesting because they don't actually go after 10 much. He kind of comes back and he sees the space and kicks, right. So you're right. If we're too narrow, if Ireland are too narrow to or they shift him out to, which they did a little bit against Wales, or he stayed on the open side wing, then I can see him getting exposed with a crossfield kick as well. So they might go hunting for him, potentially, but he's this is massive for him. This is huge in terms of lines as well. I think, because I think if he can go well in this proper test game, which I believe it will be, then he could get on the plane minimum. Prendergast. If he gets exposed and wiped up, which there is a potential, if they run down his lane and he is very poor, then it could be the other way around, where Farrell thinks he can't bring him because Schmidt will do the same thing.
Yeah, and we've talked about the downsides of what we've seen from Prendergast so far, but the upside is that no matter what happens, he's had little bad moments in every single game, but he'll just be able to clear that from his mind and go back to executing incredible passes, unbelievable kicks, both touch finders and cross field kicks. So he seems to have an incredible temperament to just put whatever issues that might have happened behind him and carry on with the game plan.
I can't wait to see it. Like, honestly, I'm so excited. That's one of the big things, because the more it's gone on, the more I think he's the real deal. I've said it, in our last couple of pods, and I think he'll know. We talk about them coming after him in an attacking sense. I think also in a defensive sense, they'll be coming. He plays so flat the line. I think he could have a bit of fun as well. I know he'll get a couple of late hits, but I think he could potentially use that and unlock the defense, because they will be over chasing him, and he'll use that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how he goes, and and putting people into space and using Bundy as a sort of getting over the game line as well.
Definitely. Okay, you half mentioned it earlier. Let's talk about the scrum because for me, Andrew Porter is a fantastic scrummager, but I think he needs to understand when things aren't quite going his way in the eyes of the referee a little bit more and just manage what he's doing. Prioritize not giving a penalty away when
Mm.
things aren't quite going his way. And it'll be interesting to see whether that he's going to be able to do that this week because he's up against Antonio, who scrummages really low, and the scrum often collapses on his side of the scrum. Like he gets down so low. So will Porter be able to manage what he's doing? Because honestly, I think discipline is the most important thing in this part of the game.
Well, hugely so, and yeah, I was pretty burnt after the last game, and I still feel that he was Porter was unfairly treated. I think there's a preconception with English referees that's been in the press over the last couple of weeks about Wayne Barnes' thoughts on Porter, and he has an influence on English referees. You've got two the touchies this weekend. Is It's Matt Carley and Ridley is the other one who pinged him off the park last week. So, and if they're calling in stuff, then I'm worried. But on the flip side of that, Fogarty's been in the press this week, sort of blaming the Welsh and sort of going in around what they were doing in the set and looking for the ground. So in a way, maybe it works in our advantage that it's like when you really put pressure on the referees and say, show them vid or whatever, and saying, look, we're going to get long bind, whatever it is, we're going to scrummage straight. It's the tie head he's always looking for because he's always looking to scrum low. But he could he could. I mean, it's the dark arts. Maybe he is cheating all the time, and therefore he's going to get pinged off the park. Maybe that is. I don't know. I don't believe it is. I think he's too big and strong. But it doesn't matter what we think; it's what the ref thinks on the day. And if you're right, if he sometimes you just got to give it up and just let it go. But it's so crucial that set play. So we just, as long as we can get parity and just be solid to have an attacking platform and no pens, will be okay. But if it could go badly wrong if they go after us. I heard what's the really good French hooker that's now a pundit who played for Leicester. He was talking about how they're going to go after Sheen because he's so tall. And really try and get under him. So they're going to target it. We know it's coming. They're going to target us.
Yeah, Benjamin Kaiser.
Yeah.
I think you're right, and I just think you're right. Parity is what should be desired here because the French actually haven't been that destructive with their scrummage in this championship. They've been pretty solid and they've won some penalties at times, but England put them under a bit of pressure as well. So I think parity. Try not to concede penalties. I think that's a real key thing nowadays in scrummaging. I really think it is because referees, as we've discussed, are under pressure to keep the game moving. That first scrum last week against the Welsh, it already collapsed once. Ridley got a call from the touch judge to penalise it, so it wasn't actually his call, the first penalty against Porter. But they're under pressure to keep the game moving, and I understand that. So it's up to the players then to be absolutely white as white, make sure that they're showing everything they can, whilst also obviously competing as hard as they can, because there's
Mhm.
no space for like shirking in there at all.
Yeah. I think Fogarty was really. If people want to have it, it's on Wales Online. I think Wales Sport Online. But it was really clever bit of sort of putting stuff into just drip feeding into the press. And what he was saying was, and I do agree with this, and I think what I hope we see is traditionally it's not usually a mess when France and Ireland go at it. It's a test, and it's two good packs going at it. I think when we're playing against teams that are just looking to kind of disrupt us rather than show that they're a better scrummaging team than us, then that's what happens. I think he was kind of saying Wales were sort of being very dark arty and just kind of cheating the whole time. Basically, is what he was getting at. Whereas he was trying to say that the French will be more interested in a physical test, and that's good for the fans watching. And it's good for the referee as well. Just let's go at it. It doesn't need to be an absolute mess all the time. Let's just go for it and see, drain each other out rather than sort of looking for the floor. Let's see.
Yeah, absolutely. As usual, me and you could talk about scrummaging all day long,
Oh,
but
we
let's get
could.
on to let's get on to the rest of the game. Okay, big picture now. I think honestly, I could see this game going lots of different ways, depending on all kinds of different situations. It's fascinating in that respect. But put your money where your mouth is, Elko. How do you see this one going, and what score do you see happening by the end?
Yeah, wow. It's hard, isn't it? The old me would be uh sort of France. France are going to win, but we've got to get out of this. We as Irish fans, we've got to get and it's a line between being cocky and arrogant because apparently now we're the most arrogant fans in the Northern Hemisphere, maybe the whole world. And I think that stems from the idiots that off the ball. But I think we need to be confident. We're playing at home. We're going for a third Grand Slam. Um,
Third
I
championship.
f- sorry, third championship. Sorry, a Grand Slam. And thank you for correcting because otherwise we'll get fierce abuse. And I don't know. I feel we've got more reasons in a tight game to be on it. With the Grand Slam's on. Three guys are leaving. We know. I think that's really good with the experience there. We know what's coming. We know how physically dark this is going to get, and we will be prepared for that. And we've got a brilliant coaching setup to take us through that. I just think we need to be massively accurate. And then you add the Irish and British lines thing on top of that. I'm sure Andy will be there. I think if Ireland can come out and have massive performances and win this Test match, then I think a lot of guys will be on the plane, sort of thing. So for me, with my confidence head on, I think we're going to win. I think we're going to win fairly well. I think 12 points. I think we're going to win. I think it'll be fairly high scoring. So like a 32-20, maybe a bit less than that. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that is a big win in a game like this. From what I heard earlier in the week, the bookies have got Ireland as 1 point favourites. Now, what do I think? As I sort of mentioned earlier, I really do think this game could go lots of different ways, but I just sense that both teams have got the odd defensive frailty about them, and both teams also have got a lot of points about them as well. They played a lot of good attacking rugby throughout this championship, so I also think it might be relatively high scoring. And I'm gonna go for it, Elko. I'm gonna say let's keep the championship alive. France 29-28, I think, and then it'll all go
29
down
28.
29-28.
Boosh. Listen, for the championship, yeah, I mean, that would be for Super Saturday, would be epic. And actually, sort of, I'm saying what I was saying, but I did say I did say at the beginning of the championship that I didn't think anybody was going to do a Grand Slam. So we're going to win and we're going to lose to Italy. That's what's going to happen.
Amazing. Okay, people at home, that is what we think. Lots of detail there around scrummaging as usual. But what do you think at home? Any sort of key factors that we haven't mentioned that you think are going to play a big part? Do you think the 7-1 bench for the French is going to blow up in front of them? Let us know in the comments down below. And also, don't forget, we always have like an after party. It's live on Facebook and on YouTube directly after the game. So come and join me for that, where we go through all of the details of the game, bit by bit, and we figure out what the hell just happened, basically. We get you guys involved as well, get your sort of comments and stuff up on screen. So come and join that. It's a lot of fun. Okay, let's have your comments on this one, though. Down below, give this video a thumbs up while you're down there if you don't mind. It just leaves me to say, Elko, thanks again for your efforts today. Wonderful stuff.
Thanks, TT. Bon chance. Bon chance.
And people at home, you can subscribe there. You can watch that one next. Don't forget to get out and play.